Hello and welcome to Useless Information. My name is Darryl Woods and I work in adult services at Hollywood St. Paul's. And this week we're going to be looking at Santa Claus, but Santa Clauses from around the world and other holiday characters from around the world. And we're going to start with Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and Father Christmas. Father Christmas looks like a Saint Nick Santa Claus type character, but he's really not supposed to be. He looks that way now because the tradition of Santa Claus and Saint Nick has kind of influenced Father Christmas. But initially he was supposed to be the embodiment of Christmas, but more for adults. He wasn't somebody handing out a lot of gifts and stuff like that. He was the embodiment of adult feasting and merrymaking around the holidays. So definitely a little bit different from traditional Santa Claus or Saint Nick. In France, they have their own Father Christmas, Père Noël, who definitely is a Saint Nick type. Then we've also got Père Fouettard, and he is kind of an interesting character. Notice that he's carrying a whip. He uses this to whip the bad boys and girls, and will sometimes put coal in their stockings. And he's got a kind of an interesting backstory. So originally he was an innkeeper, supposedly, and there were some rich children who were at his inn heading for boarding school, and Fouettard felt like he could murder them in order to get their coins, and so he did. Saint Nick comes along, he discovers the murders, he solves the mystery, he resurrects the children, and he decides he's going to punish Fouettard by making him his assistant. And so, yeah, why Saint Nick wants to have a murderer as his assistant, I don't know, but there we go. Father Frost, another one who looks like a Saint Nick type, but isn't. Father Frost has existed long before Saint Nick and has even existed before Christianity. He's a very ancient snow wizard. Who's kind of worshipped by the pagans of Russia at the time. And interestingly enough, when Russian Orthodoxy had its foothold, they adopted Father Frost as a Saint Nick type. So much so that by the time the Bolshevik Revolution occurred, they banned Father Frost because he was too religious, even though, like I said, he predates Christianity. Snow Maiden is supposed to be Father Frost's granddaughter. However, in the original telling of the Snow Maiden, there was a forlorn couple who was very upset that they were childless, and so they formed a snow baby and wished her into existence. Snow Maiden is unique in the sense that she is the only female assistant to the Santa Claus type in all the world that I'm aware of. From Sweden, we have the Yuleton, and these are essentially kind of garden gnomes, and they will bring presents at the Christmas time. They don't like to be seen. They don't like change. They will punish change. In fact, they are known to have a poisonous bite. So you want to avoid that if you ever run across a Yuleton. If you want to make a Yuleton happy, then you set out porridge for him or her on Christmas Eve. The Netherlands. We've got Sinterklaas. Now, before we had Santa Claus, originally we had Saint Nick, the actual historical figure. Our version of Santa Claus actually filtered through the Netherlands version of Sinterklaas, as you kind of hear the sound of that in there. they have a very interesting idea of who their Santa Claus is, though. Of course, ours lives in the North Pole. Theirs lives in Spain, and he arrives each year via a steam engine. Yeah. And whereas our Santa Claus has elves, they have at least one, and sometimes up to a dozen, Black Peters. And Black Peter is kind of a controversial figure nowadays. He was supposed to have been a Moor from Spain, so a black person. And yes, and so he's still typically kind of in blackface, although they explain this away by saying no, he's not in blackface. This is the soot on his face as he's coming down chimneys and whatsoever. He carries a big bag of cotton candy that he distributes to children, and he also has a chimney sweep broom that he uses to spank the bad children. And if they are really bad, he will kidnap them, take them back to Spain, and sell them into slavery. Initially, he used to be kind of a dimwit. And Santa Claus was always going, "Oh, Black Peter, oh." But now it's kind of reversed, where Santa Claus is like this old man who's, forgetful-minded, and Black Peter is supposed to be a very efficient and very useful assistant to him. In Germany, they have a Saint Nick Santa Claus type figure. However, they've also got some other interesting ones. If you are a fan of the Family Guy, not the Family Guy, American Dad, you're probably familiar with Krampus. He is this half man, half goat. And this is another character that definitely predates Christianity. Goes back to the pagan traditions of somebody who would punish the bad children. Another one who would kidnap children. Beat them, things like that. In the center, we've got Knecht Ruprecht, and this is Santa Claus's impoverished assistant. He will give nuts, apples, and gingerbread to certain children. He will say to the children, "Do you know how to pray?" And if they say, "Yes, I do know how to pray," then he gives them these simple gifts. And if you say, "I do not know how to pray," then Knecht Ruprecht will beat you with his bag of ashes. If you are a fan of The Office, you might be familiar with Belsnickel. This is also somehow based on Saint Nick. That's what Belsnickel means, Saint Nick. However, this is the craziest version of Saint Nick that we have. He is wearing furs, raggedy clothing. He is another one who he carries a switch and he beats the bad children, but he also carries cakes and candies and nuts for the good children. As crazy as the Dwight Christmas was in The Office, it's actually fairly accurate to what Belsnickel is all about, believe it or not. In Spain and a lot of other countries that are heavily Catholic, the person who brings the gifts for Christmas are the same people who brought the gifts during Christmas to Jesus, the three wise men. And so I think that's kind of neat. Italy has a bizarre little tradition. This is l'Elbafana, and she is an old hag who flies around on a broom, much like a witch. And she is another one. She doesn't punish the bad kids, but she will bring them coal instead of something useful. Sometimes in poorer households, she will just bring sticks instead of actual coal. But she does have small little gifts that she brings to good children. Perhaps most useful is that she sweeps and cleans up before she leaves. So she'll visit you on Christmas, and then she'll clean your house before she leaves, because she is a good hostess. So the tradition to this one is interesting also. The legend goes that the three wise men were on their way to Bethlehem, and they stopped at La Befana's house. They were hoping for directions. She didn't know what they were talking about, but she did offer to let them stay at her place. And so, like I said, she was the good hostess. And then they said, well, would you like to come with us? And she's like, no. But then a little bit later on, she was like, oh man, I should have done that. So she went searching for them, wasn't able to find them. So the reason that she visits everybody's house on Christmas is because she's looking for the baby Jesus. Another one that stretches back before Christianity, almost any of these that have the word Yule in them, refers to the ancient Yuletide pagan tradition. And so the Yule goat is kind of interesting. It's thought that this might have been part of the worship of Thor, because Thor was pulled around on a chariot by a couple goats. But the Yule goat, during the Yuletide, he would come into town and he would demand gifts from the people. So reversed a little bit. And today, you might see like a Yule goat Christmas tree ornament. And occasionally you'll see people dress up as this man-sized goat in order to deliver presents. But he's really not much of the tradition part anymore. The Seven Lucky Gods of Japan. What I find interesting about these guys is they are an interesting assortment of all different kinds of religions. We've got some Buddhists in here, some Taoists in here, some Hindus in here, and also from very different cultures. Only one of them is actually from Japan. So they represent these different areas of professions and vocations. So one of them is kind of the god of business. Another one's a god of the arts. One of them is a god of science and things like that. So they're supposed to not only bring blessing, but to kind of hedge against unfortune. The 13 Yule Lads will visit Icelanders in the 13 days leading up to Christmas. And these guys, for lack of a better word, pull pranks. So, like, the first one who comes to visit you will go out to your barn and will suckle the sheep so the sheep doesn't have any milk. Another one will steal the meat. Another one will lick all the spoons in the house. There's one of them who slams doors and stomps on the floors all night. Another one is like a peeping Tom. And so, yeah, each night a different one will visit you. And that couple that's looking over their shoulder in the upper left, that is their parents. And the mother is a real monster. Now, my favorite kind of tradition amongst non-Americans is the Catalonian one of El Tío de Nadal, or literally the Christmas log. So what they will do is they will take these logs, and as you can see, there's a face painted on one side. They'll take the log and they'll put it underneath a Christmas tree, and they will pretend to feed it in the days leading up to Christmas. They'll also put a blanket on it so that it stays nice and warm, so they're treating it really well leading up to Christmas. Christmas Eve, though, is a different story, because then they shove half of it into the fireplace, as if to threaten it, that we're going to set you on fire. If you don't have a fireplace, then they will beat the log with sticks, all the time singing the song about digestion. They're trying to get the Christmas log to poop, and then on Christmas Day, it poops out little fruits, nuts, small toys, games, things like this. things that can kind of be shared by the whole family. And that is got to be the craziest tradition for any holiday that I can think of. And so, yeah, go out and get yourself a Christmas log and beat it until it craps presents. Okay, so I got most of my information from these two sources. And before I get out of here, I'd like to thank Maya, who did such a good job with these slides and with those wonderful pictures. And if you enjoyed this, and I hope you did, then I think you will also enjoy our virtual trivia night. It happens every Thursday at 8, and you can either go to the URL that you see here or just go to Facebook and type in virtual trivia night, and you should be able to find us. And once again, this has been Useless Information. I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and post a comment down below, or you can send any questions, comments, suggestions to this email right here. And thank you very much. I hope you enjoy your holiday. Bye-bye.